Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at the many different Driftlooms of GLC, or Driftblim, or Driftblim? Anyway, the Psychic Balloon of GLC. So what is GLC? It's a single prize only, no Robux format. It is singleton, except for basic energy, and you're only allowed one type per deck. And one more thing before we get going. Yeah, one more thing, I know pronunciation these days. But one more thing before we get going. Driftbloom is a really cool Pokemon. You know, I love the concept. I do think he gets a lot of very fun cards. But one thing I will say, and it has to be said, is that this video will feature a lot more misses than hits, shall I say. So yeah, just be prepared for some pretty mediocre cards, basically. That's not to say there won't be some very cool ones, but yeah, definitely a few duds when it comes to Driftbloom. But before we get going, we can have a look at some basics. So Drifloon is honestly really cool. You've got some fun options. Of course, I would definitely say the best option is the one with Balloon Blast, which is fortunately one of the more recent ones. So that's helpful. It is, pretty good in Gardevoir, of course, so it's a little bit more expensive than the other ones, perhaps, which are going to be literal pennies in comparison. But yeah, this Drifloon does have a shiny version as well. So if you want to go like maximum rarity, I guess, then you can go for this Drifloon. So yeah, honestly, a very, very solid card overall. But yeah, the first Drifblim we can take a look at here is a one from Dragons Exalted, and it has the attack Shadow Steel and Plentiful Placement. Both of these are pretty mediocre, to be honest. If you have a way of removing special energy, then I guess it can be good. But your opponent will be able to play around this. You know, you can run things like Special Charge in GLC to retrieve 2 special energy from the discard pile as well. So, by the time Shadow Steel is actually doing, good damage, unfortunately your opponent will be able to counter it pretty badly. So, sadly, can't really recommend this Driftblim, but, it's got some nice artwork, so that's cool. The next one is from Plasma Blast, has the ability Drifting Balloon. This attacks Pokemon's cost 1 colorless less for each of your opponent's Team Plasma Pokemon in play. And then Derail for 3 colors, which you could use triple acceleration energy if you really wanted to. Does 70, and you get to discard a special energy attached to defending Pokemon. So, in all honesty, right, this ability, pretty good, However, Team Plasma Pokemon don't really see that much play in GLC as far as I'm aware. They're a bit niche, a bit hard to acquire as well. Most of them have been outclassed over time. So, if there was ever some, I guess a Team Plasma reprint set in the future, like they brought the mechanic back, then I guess this Pokemon could still be used and its ability would be good. But even then, like Derail only doing 70 for 1 energy, it's a bit meh by the standards on a stage 1, so yeah, sadly not where it's at, but still, pretty cool card. Also has a no retreat cost, by the way. That's also something worth bearing in mind. Next up, though, is we have one from Steam Siege. Honestly, I really like this one. I love the simplicity of the artwork. Also, the attack Burst Cursed is really cool. For 2 Psychic Energy, you get to discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon, and then put 8 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. Really fun synergy with Dusclops and Counter Energy. So Dusclops KOs itself, so you go behind on prizes, hopefully. You place 5 damage counters, and then you attach your Counter Energy, then Counter Energy will pay for Burst Curse. Then after that, if you remain behind on prizes, you can still use Counter Energy. Or, actually, no, you can't, because it will discard it. But you can use, like, Xatu and Malamar to charge up energy. So, yeah, it's a decent spread option. Later on, we'll look at a Drifblim that can attack and basically do 8 damage counters spread for 3 Psych Energy, and you don't have to discard 2 energy, but, paying for 2 energy is a lot more efficient than paying for 3, of course, so, yeah, I do think this one's pretty solid overall, and definitely not, like, the worst option in the world, so yeah, definitely consider it, especially if you're planning on messing around with Dusclops, is what I meant to say there. But yeah, a lot of fun psychic spread options. Then we have one from Ultra Prism, which has 2 okay attacks actually. Wind Wheel is alright, but Damage Transport is the more interesting one of the 2. Move 4 damage counters from each of your Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's basically like an anti-spread kind of card. Like, all those Tyrannitars that do huge bench damage. Like, this is a really good counter to Tyranitar, funnily enough. But yeah, honestly, a really solid move. Unfortunately, getting 4 damage counters on each of your Pokemon is a bit awkward, to be honest. Like, you can use Gengar to put 3 damage counters on itself. That's cool. You can use Giratina if you really wanted to, which could also do a little bit of spread damage to your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is nice. So like Shadow Impact, for example, put 4 damage counters on one of your Pokemon. So if you use Giratina a few times, you could then use Damage Transport to, I don't know, one-shot another Pokemon. So that's kind of cool, right? But aside from those niche synergies, I don't think this Drifblim is particularly impressive. It's still very fun though, and you could definitely make a deck around this. So yeah, seems pretty cool. Then we have one from Unified Minds, and yeah, it's a similar spot to the Lucario and we looked at in the Many Lucarios of GLC. Has the ability Tag Transport. It says once your turn before you attack, you may switch your active Tag Team Pokemon. Pause, wait a minute, tag teams are not legal in GLC. So yeah, sadly this ability is null and void, does nothing, and for 3 Colorless Energy, spinning attack does a whopping 70 damage. Yay. So the one redeeming feature of this is that you can use triple acceleration energy to do 70, but like why would you? You know, it's painful. So yeah, so it's a very, very bad card in GLC. Next up is we have Astral Radiance. This one's honestly, it's underwhelming, right? But it's honestly way better than some of the other Drifblims in this video. So for 1 Psychic Energy, Spooky Balloon does 50 damage and put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And you can actually do this turn 1 going second because it's for a single energy. And you also have access to Salvatore, which, you know, can just let you evolve it up turn 1 going second. You also have like Gapejaw Bog, which can contribute to damage counters. So honestly, not like the worst combo in the world, and definitely something, you know, that I would, you know, recommend trying out if you want some budget spread options. But, you know, I do emphasize budget spread. Then we get to Scarlet and Violet base set, and this is the one I was talking about earlier with the 3 energy, you know, cost. You can have a shiny variant, which is cool. Also got 110 HP versus the usual 100 HP from Drifblim. But yeah, the main thing about this one though is that it does take 3 energy, not 2. But I would still say this is probably the best Drifblim in GLC, you know. So like the Steam Siege one is second place, I think, and then this one is, spoiler alert, this one's like third place. But yeah, this one's probably the best Drifblim in GLC, at least in terms of like spread decks and overall, you know, psychic spread shenanigans. So if you're not that familiar with psychic spread, by the way, you have access to things like Horror Energy, which is basically a single Psychic Energy that places 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon when they attack you. You've also got things like Spell Tag, which is 4 damage counters anywhere when the Psychic Pokemon gets killed. Old Cemetery is a really good one as well. You've got Miss Magius as other spread attackers. So yeah, definitely worth picking up if you think you can power it up. Also, you can actually use a Reverse Energy, I should mention, to pay for curse spreading. So yeah, that's cool. And yep, it was spoiled earlier, but the last one is Stellar Bulk, you know, Stellar Crown. Everyone Explode now. For 1 Psychic Energy, it does 50 damage for each of your Drifloon and Drifblim in play. And then it does 30 damage to each of your Drifloon and Drifblim in play. So yeah, the funny thing is about GLC is that it's singleton. So, you know, you can only play 1 Drifblim in your deck. So if you don't actually play away, like for example, Hypno, if you don't play Hypno or you don't play Dream Ball, you don't play a way to basically get this out onto the bench by itself, you have to evolve Drifloon into your own Drifblim. And then at that point, you can only do 50 damage. And to be honest, even if you used Hypno to cheat out Drifblim and bench Drifloon after that, you would still only be doing 100 damage, and then you do 30 damage to both Drifblim and Drifloon. It's literally one of the worst attackers in GLC. I think it's one of like... Is it one of the worst attackers in GLC? Like, maybe. The funny thing is, right, about saying the worst attackers in GLC is there's a lot of Pokemon that are terrible because of this. So you have to, like, really thin down your criteria about what you class as a terrible Pokemon. But yeah, Drifblim, this one in particular, is just, yeah, it's just awful. Please, please do not play this card. It's so bad. Like, why would you do 50 damage and then 30 damage to each of your Pokemon that have this in an attack name when you can just do like 50 and 2 damage counter spread, you know, like it's a no-brainer really. So yeah, so hopefully we get a better Drifblim in the new era of the TCG. But yeah, thanks for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release. With the exception of the next set, Prismatic Evolutions, there's honestly like 7 or 8 cards. I might release a short video closer to release, just going over some trainers and stuff, but there's really nothing to talk about. Like, I think Bud used the most playable card in that set. It's just like, yeah, there's really nothing for GLC as well in that set, apart from like reprints. So yeah, bit of a shame. However, I will of course still be doing one for Journey together. This is now a series to stay, so let me know which Pokemon you'd like to see. There is a list, but getting through them, and a playlist has been made. And if you want to dive into the competitive side, of course, OmniPoke and the format creator Tricky Jim have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type. But yeah, let me know which Pokemon you'd like to see in this series in the future. And yeah, thank you for watching.